As the Mountaineers get ready to take on the Albany Great Danes, their lone FCS opponent and their only non-Power 4 opponent in the 2024 football season, can they right the ship from last Saturday's loss to Penn State? My partner Jonathan Martin and I are here to talk about that on episode 6 of the Golden Blue Breakdown Show, right here on Couz's Corner. Thank you for tuning in today. Jonathan, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Couz. We showed up. We didn't cancel the show.
That's right.
The season's not over, but I'll say I'm excited to maybe put a bow on Penn State.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Share little thoughts on that, and then probably, as West Virginia is wanting to do, turn the page.
Absolutely. Reminds me of the great song by Bob Seger, "Turn the Page," one of my favorite songs. Before we do it, I got to give a quick shout out to my channel sponsor. So stay tuned. Give us about 40 seconds. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. All right. Thank you to Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner for helping me keep the lights on here at Couz's Corner. And thanks to Jonathan for joining me again for this week's show. And, man, we're excited about this one. All right. So let's go ahead and jump right into putting a bow on this Penn State game, man. Let's go ahead and do our Penn State wrap up. Jonathan, what are your initial thoughts to wrap this baby up?
Yeah, I texted you Saturday evening after the game was over and just pretty much said I was at a loss. Weirdly enough, after a couple of days of digesting it, thinking about it, listening to Neal Brown speak, I'm quite frankly still at a loss about it. I picked West Virginia to win a football game. That's documented. But I wasn't surprised that Penn State won. They were the number 8 team in the country. I think I joined everybody else in just my confusion as to what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming. And to be frank, I don't think Neal Brown or anybody else saw it coming. So surprised at the performance. West Virginia, just it seemed from the very beginning of the game, just they weren't in sync. Timing of the snaps were off, guys out of position, turnovers early, some questionable calls by the coaching staff. The whole thing just felt out of rhythm. Mm-hmm. It just felt off. And so I guess the key takeaway for me was I'm just surprised. And quite frankly, I'm glad it's over and we can look to this week against Albany. But as we'll get into here later on in the show, I would just say got to be careful here because even though it's week 2, because I think you and I both agree it's a critical week. So ready to turn the page, but surprised at what happened.
Yep. Same here, man. I'm with you. I was actually at the game, witnessed it in person. Was extremely agitated because I spent a lot of money for the ticket. Probably the most expensive football ticket I've ever purchased in my life. Drove 3.5 hours to Morgantown, stayed in a hotel, bought food, bought beverages, to watch that. It was irritating. I hate. I know it's always a risk when you go to a game, but man, with all the I drank the Kool-Aid, Jonathan. The staff gave us the Kool-Aid. I drank it, and man, I did not expect that performance. I picked us to lose, but I thought it was going to be a 3-point ball game.
Yeah,
and it was when Penn State fumbled the ball and we got it. I'm like, okay, here we go, baby. I was going back to my keys from last week's show. Turnovers. We're going to win the turnover battle, baby. Here's number 1. And when we turned right around and gave it right back to them, I thought, uh-oh, not a good sign.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew then, I don't think this is going to be our day. I mean, it just had that feeling about it, from then on.
Yeah.
But I still kept holding out hope. I kept thinking, I was there in the 2005 Louisville game, right, when it was 24-7 in the fourth quarter and West Virginia came back and won the game. I was at that game. So I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is not over. But then I'm also thinking, but man, this is not Louisville. This is freaking Penn State here, right?
Yeah.
So, and the longer it got, and I'm like, I finally accepted it. I guess this is not going to happen. So anyway, but yeah, it was ugly. Not a good performance. Neal Brown's post-game press conference was much to be desired, to be honest.
Yeah.
Did not like how he talked to him about officiating so much. Did not like how he didn't seem to want to give Penn State any credit for the game. I know that wasn't his intent, I don't think, but I just felt like I didn't like it. But I'm not here to pile on Neal Brown, but there were just a lot of things about that day that really made me a little nauseous.
Yeah, and Couz, I'll tell you, I think that's the thing we're all trying to figure out, right? Is that West Virginia literally seemed to have everything going for them pre-kickoff. A 9-win season, a top 10 opponent at home, season ticket sales, excitement around the program, excitement in the state, seemed to take a next level approach, right? Everybody was excited. Everywhere you went, we were talking about it. Everybody was talking about it. Friday was massive for the program with Pat McAfee. Just a laundry list of West Virginia greats and current coaches, players on stage. The crowds were crazy. Saturday was big. I joked with somebody that I actually wasn't at the game, but I had my Saturday morning coffee with Fox News on, and they did the weather from outside the stadium. Literally everybody was there. It just seemed like the momentum was built for West Virginia, which is why I thought they were going to win. And it never materialized. And so I don't know that we have a pulse on exactly what happened, other than we know that it did happen. And I'll tell you, I was thinking today on one of our first episodes, probably our very first one, we did our season predictions. And if you'll remember, when it got to this game, I even gave you a old Lee Corso not so fast. And the reason why I did, and I even said as much in that episode, is I'd be curious to see what happened week one. Was it you shocked the world, you won the game? Was it a crushing defeat, or was it, meaning a close game? Or was it something we didn't see coming? And regardless of that outcome, I thought would possibly transition into where we are today. And so I'll be curious, to be quite frank. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what we think we know, but I'm not sure we do know what they're going to look like this week. But it'll be interesting. But yeah, just, I guess, closing there, just shocked, surprised, didn't see it coming. Sign me up. Didn't see it coming. Your keys to the game early, you're right, seemed to be on track, and then we turned the ball right back over.
Yeah.
My three keys, they failed in all categories. No surprise when it was 34-12. But the good news is, back at home, an opponent they should win. But I can honestly tell you, Couz, I'm going into this Saturday. I have no clue. I don't know what's going to happen, what it's going to look like, what shows up. I know what I hope shows up, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, it's an FCS game, and no disrespect to Albany, but on paper, West Virginia should throttle them. And no disrespect to, I had a guest on my show earlier from Albany.
Yep.
You guys can go check that out. Someone who covers them for the local news there. Man, he knows that team. Very, very, very well done breakdown of the team for me. I'm a little, he's the vibe around that building and around that program is pretty positive, and they think they have a really good football team. And it would not mean it would mean everything for them to come in and shock the world and beat West Virginia on Saturday. So they can't overlook this game. So let's go ahead and jump right in, man.
Yep.
Before we do, though, real quick, don't forget we have a X account for this show at GB Breakdown _. So go follow us on X. We don't post a ton, but we do post show replays and whatnot. It's at GB Breakdown _. And also, Jonathan's got a show called the Jonathan Martin Podcast, or what is it? Jonathan K. Martin Podcast?
Yeah, it's a Jonathan K. Martin Podcast. A lot of what we do here, but some things that we just quite frankly don't have a lot of time to discuss. Yeah. Sometimes just throw some thoughts together. Yeah. So
I listened to his recap show from earlier this week today and really enjoyed it. Gave it 5 stars. So please do that. And also, if you're listening to this on podcast platform as well, please give us a 5-star review. We'd love to have it. All right. Let's jump right into our 3 keys to the game. Jonathan, let you go first, my man.
Yeah. So, Couz, I started last week by saying my first key was West Virginia had to establish the run game. Surprise, surprise. That's where I'm at again this week. And I'll tell you why. West Virginia didn't get it done last week. 80-some yards rushing. I think it was 85 yards total rushing. Never got their footing. That's such an important part for this West Virginia offense. It opens up so much. You believe so much in C.J. Donaldson, Jaheim White, even Garrett running the football. And West Virginia didn't get it done. I realize the Penn State defensive front is going to be much different than Albany. But Albany gave up almost 200 yards rushing last week.
Against Long Island.
Against Long Island. And so here's a pretty interesting stat that I saw today. They gave up almost 6 yards per carry. And so I feel like this is an opportunity to get back to establish what West Virginia really built on last year, which was the running game. And then it opens up so much more, obviously, the passing game, the deep shots. It gets Garrett comfortable. But after a week where you took probably a position where you felt was undoubtedly a strength of your offense, and it was just awful. I know Jaheim got hurt, got a little banged up and came back. Maybe he wasn't 100%, but you never got it going. And Albany's a team that seemed like last week against Long Island that was a little susceptible to giving up some explosive plays. You have to establish the run game because it opens up so much more. And there is that opportunity there where they gave up 6 yards per carry, some big plays.
Right. Agreed. My first, and by the way, that young man from Long Island, he ran, his name was Ludovic Choquette. He ran for 15 rushes, 128 yards. He averaged 8.5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't going to try and say his name. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. I may have butchered it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, he had a great performance. And I think that if you look at that number, that's what you can expect from Jaheim or maybe even CJ. And so the opportunity's there. And for West Virginia really to just get back to what they were built on, I think they got to get that going.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and, Jonathan and I do not compare notes before these shows because we want it to be authentic, but that's one of mine too. They have to establish the run game. I can't really say much more than what you already said, but they need to do what West Virginia does. They need to be back to that dominant running team that we know they can be. And if they can't do it this week, then I'm not sure they can, just to be straight up honest with you. So this is by far going to be the weakest opponent they play. They've got to do it this week. So, again, I'm right with you. They have to establish the run game. It's what they do, and it is their identity. If you can't be who you are, it's going to be a long day. So they need to establish the run. So I'm right there with you. Running the football is absolutely key.
Yeah, and because I will say too, Neal tried to put a little bit of what I called lipstick on it. He talked about some negative plays, but that kind of affect the total rushing yards, and I get that, and it's valid. But I don't think that anybody watching that game felt like that was the West Virginia rushing attack you need to get the job done. So while Neal tried to put lipstick on it, and it's valid. This can't be a football game. And again, we're not comparing Penn State to Albany per se, but I do think it's a measure where you can have, 2.3 yards per carry or 85 rushing yards. You have to establish yourself this week against Albany.
Yep, agreed. All right. What is your second key to the game?
Yeah, so for me, and you kind of touched on it as one of your keys last week, turnovers. You have to take care of the football. West Virginia lost the battle last week, 3-1. Long Island didn't. I think Long Island had one turnover, but Albany didn't have a turnover all week. And again, these are tough, and I don't want to sound redundant, but it's difficult comparing one team playing Long Island and one team playing Penn State, but you have to win a turnover battle. It's
Agreed.
pretty simple. We could talk about it forever, but the expectation is you're going to force Albany into some mistakes, and you have to capitalize them. So that's an important part, is you can't turn around and give the football back. Can't fumble, can't throw interceptions. And so you have to win that. That's a huge battle for me, and a key to the games. You have to win the turnover margin.
Yeah, Albany, I mean, that's the reason Albany won the game. They won 27-21. They actually lost in almost every statistical category, but they had a scoop and score. That was the difference in the game. So they can take advantage of turnovers if you let them. So agree, that's a very good one. My second key is just establish dominance on both lines of scrimmage, man. If you can't establish dominance at the line against an FCS opponent, and I'm not saying they're not going to have some good linemen, because they will. But West Virginia should be bigger. They should be stronger. They should be more athletic. You have got to win this line of scrimmage in this game. No questions asked, in my opinion. That's key too for me.
Yeah, I agree. This is by all measure a opponent you should dominate. And so, you have to win the turnover margin, because Albany even proved last week that it can make a difference in a game. So you have to establish that, and that has to be a margin in which you win this week for sure.
All right. What's your third one?
So my third one's not statistical, and honestly, I probably could have put this first. A huge key to the game for me is attitude. It's attitude. We can sit here and talk, and I might go off on a little bit of a rant here, but we can talk about it. How you're a better football team. They're not on your level, but it's attitude, right? I mean, West Virginia just flat got dominated last week on the national stage in front of a sold-out crowd, folks like yourself that spent their hard-earned money, traveled, stayed in everything you said. 60,000 folks did.
Yep.
So it's about attitude for me. It's about, are you going to show up against this opponent that you should dominate, and are you going to dominate from the very beginning? We saw last year against Duquesne, I felt like there was a little bit of carryover, right? From the first week, talent eventually won out. But I want to see it from the beginning. And I'll say, I asked on Twitter today, but before I do my podcast, before I do this show, I like to engage a little bit. I do that a lot, actually, just to see if I'm crazy. What are people thinking? I never really tell them what I'm thinking, but I want to see what they're thinking to see if it matches up with me. And I put a simple question out there: is what do you want outside of a win? What do you want to see? And a large majority of them said, from the absolute get-go, I want to see attitude. I want to see dominance. And I think we're going to learn a lot about this football team within about probably the first quarter of this game. So for me, it's coming out with the chip on your shoulder. If you get the ball, take it. I want to see a drive. I want to see a score. I want to see the ground and pound. I want to see a throw down the field. I want to see something that shows me you're here. You're not messing around. Last week, Neal Brown said it. That won't define us. That's not who we are. Show it to us. Show it. That's what I want to see. Attitude.
Well, mine is similar. It's not exact, but I guess it's non-statistical like yours. But it still involves mindset, but it's just play loose and have fun, man.
Yeah.
I feel like last week they were tight. They were pressing, trying too hard. Jaheim and CJ were trying too hard to make plays. I think Garrett let his emotions get the best of him a little bit. There were jitters. Man, this is a game. Just go out there and have a good time and have some fun and be loose. No, it's hard to do when you got people like me and you on social media talking about it, right?
Yeah.
But if they just need to put all that crap behind them and treat this like what it is, and it's a game that you're privileged to be able to do and go do it and have fun, man. If they can do that, man, I sky's the limit, I think, for this team.
Yeah.
And that's what they need to do this week. And I think if they do that, they will have that dominance that you talked about. But they just need to be loose, man. They need to be loose, have fun, and play the game of football. Period.
Yeah, and I think that kind of both of those kind of go together. And we're going to find out pretty early. Are they just out to have fun, or do they carry a little bit of that stress over, that anxiousness over, that prove it mentality, which is good, but it sometimes can affect you in other ways and be a little harmful. So so good point. I think we have to see this team come out early and feel like they're comfortable and feel like they're just out loose having fun. And I think that'll tell us a lot about this team.
Agreed. All right, now we're going to jump over to our 2 position battles to watch. Jonathan, what's your first position battle that you have top of mind?
Yeah, so for me, it's the West Virginia defensive line going against the Albany offensive line. I did watch your show earlier today,
okay.
And the gentleman who covered Albany really spoke about this and actually had it listed, but he kind of drove home the point. So he probably will say it a lot better than me. I'd encourage folks to go back and watch it. Albany has all 5 starters returning on the offensive line. A couple of those who feel like they're going to play at the next level. And Albany was a pretty darn good football team last year. And so West Virginia struggled last week, especially on the defensive front. So it's important for me for them to be able to there was no sacks last week for West Virginia. So it's important for me to see West Virginia get active against, even though it's a lesser opponent per se, an offensive line that's veterans. They're established. They've been together, and they're experienced. And so I think West Virginia, where they struggled in that area last week, they're going to have to disrupt Albany up front. So I'll be curious to see how that goes.
I like it because I don't have it, and it's a very good one. My first one is, they've got that really good receiver named Seven McGee, who Mr. Valentine, who I talked about, former 5-star recruit. This young man is, so he's not a slouch. Okay, he played at Jackson State. He's played at, I think it was Oregon. He played at.
Yeah.
He's freaking fast. Okay, he had 5 catches in last week's game against LIU. He had 5 catches for 119 yards and a touchdown. Averaged 23.8 yards a catch. He caught a ball going across the middle. It was basically a slant, and he didn't even get touched, man. He was just gone.
Yeah.
Can our DBs match up against him well? I'd like to, whether it's Garnett Hollis Jr., whether it's, Aiden Garnes, whoever it is lined up on him, how well can they match up on him? I feel like they can, but I want to see it because I think he's as good as some of the P5 or P4 receivers they'll see this year. I think he's that good. So can they match up with him? Because I think that's a key matchup in this game as well, is trying to limit him in the pass game.
Yeah, and I think even though they're a little bit different, I think yours and I go hand in hand. So if the defensive line can establish himself, get a little disruptive, get in the backfield, get a couple sacks, get a couple QB hurries, kind of loosen up that secondary for West Virginia a little bit to feel a little bit more comfortable, that they're not in position as long. I think both of them go hand in hand. So it's important for me, and it's a great point. I think West Virginia have to get going. I think this would be a good game for Sean Martin to get established. Ty French coming off the edge. And so there's a couple guys who, if you just look through the stats last week, didn't quite perform, quite frankly, at the level that they need to. And so, yeah, I think it's important to slow down. That young man, when you talked about it, when he caught that ball, he took off. And so you're going to have to get a little bit of pressure in the backfield this week because you didn't do it last week.
Agreed. All right. What is your second position battle to watch?
Yeah, so for me, it's going to be the West Virginia wide receivers against Albany's DBs. Garrett was off last week. Let's just call it what it is, 15 of 28. Everything seemed off. Even some of the Cole Taylor pass was bobbled, just kind of happened to fall. There were a couple drop passes. Jaden Bray never got established. Just the whole passing game fell off. But they have an opportunity this week. I think his name's Deshaun. I'm not exactly sure. Winston is a safety for Albany who was a really good football player a couple of years ago, set out last year with an wrist injury. They were really excited to get him back. I'm not sure his status, but he hurt his wrist again last week. So he's questionable at best this week. And then Albany's going to start a true freshman, 5'8", Irv Wiggins. So right off the bat, you feel like you've got a little bit of a size advantage there. Sure. And so I think West Virginia is going to have to exploit that. If they're a little inexperienced at the safety position, Albany is, they've got another true freshman who's probably a heck of a player, but he's undersized and he's inexperienced. I think it's a good opportunity for West Virginia to get well again in the passing.
Yeah, I like it.
And so they have to establish that. They have to get that going. I expect to see some Jaden Bray, some Hudson Clements, some Traylon Ray, some deep stuff, maybe even Cole Taylor down the seam. So against an inexperienced and undersized secondary for James Madison, talking about like they have to get going against Albany this week.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, to your point, LIU had some success in the passing game last week. I mean, they had one receiver that caught 6 balls for 69 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
They had 3 touchdown LIU had 3 touchdowns in the air last week. So
yeah,
they will give up pass plays.
Oh yeah.
Secondary. Yeah. So great point. I'd like to see Dede Farmer get more involved this week, get him some action, maybe some experience.
Yeah.
Maybe even, you know, and maybe even Brandon Raymond.
Yeah.
Or Raymond, you know.
Yeah.
But first they've got to get their core unit back gelling again and back on the right track first. And then let everybody else get involved. But yeah, hopefully they can get everybody involved would be ideal.
Yeah.
If that happens, you know the game's going well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've got James Madison on my mind because when studying Albany today, this is the best FCS team that's come in here since James Madison. And so when I started kind of studying a little bit on Albany, they remind me a lot of James Madison. So, but I think that's an area where West Virginia can exploit Albany. Their secondary is inexperienced and a little undersized. And so I'd expect them to really kind of open it up a little bit this week.
Yeah. My second and final position battle is I want to see the middle of that West Virginia offensive line. I want to see Brandon Yates and Jaquay Hubbard specifically. How well will they do against this, what should be an undersized line, you know, D-line for Albany. I need to see those guys. You know, those guys didn't, you know, they got singled out on a couple other podcasts I listened to, West Virginia podcasts. I don't remember which ones, but, you know, those guys didn't play their strongest games last week. And I'd like to see them step up and have good games and really be, you know, open up some holes in that running game that, you know, that you and I have both mentioned already. The running game starts with your offensive line, and your offensive line is only as good as your weakest point, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like to see Jaquay Hubbard, Brandon Yates, and even Nick Malone. He graded out pretty well last week.
Yeah, he did.
So
yeah.
But primarily, I'd like to see Malone and Yates have a good showing, maybe build some of their confidence back. And now I'm assuming both of those guys will start this week. I mean, we may see some changes. Who knows? Neal Brown we may see personnel changes this week. You know, it's hard to tell. But whoever starts at those two, at the right guard and the center spots, I'd like to see them establish some dominance and play well.
Yeah,
that's
I agree. Yeah, and I think even they would say they just didn't get it done.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get it done. Nope. And so, again, that's a position where you feel West Virginia is going to have a little bit of an advantage, a little size. I talked last week. That's a unit, even though West Virginia lost some guys up front, there's 113 career snaps. There are starts coming back on that line. And so you got to show it this week.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Let's jump over. Who was your one player on West Virginia's team to watch this week? And I got a feeling it's going to be the same for both of us.
Yeah, and it could be. You could go a couple different ways. My first thought was Jaheim. So I don't know if I just ruined it for you, but my first thought was Jaheim White. I thought after what Long Island's running back again, I'm not going to attempt to name, after what he did last week, I thought it'd be a good opportunity for Jaheim to have a breakout game. But I went Garrett Greene. I think he'd be the first to say, hand up, didn't get it done last week. I've got to be better. And I think he's going to be put in a position this week to perform better. So I think you're going to see some center snap exchanges throughout the week that wasn't where they put a little bit of more practice in. I think that'll be cleaned up. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to scheme it a little bit different. I think they're going to get him out of the pocket a little bit. Maybe it's just the rust is off. I don't know. But I expect Garrett to have a huge game. I'm talking a couple passing touchdowns, couple rushing touchdowns. I'll be shocked, be absolute shocked if Garrett doesn't have a huge, huge performance this Saturday.
Yeah. And that's mine. I mean, he was the first one that came to mind, and I think it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
Garrett Greene needs to get his swagger back. Bottom line. He needs to get his swagger back. He needs to get his mojo back and do what Garrett Greene does. And like I said earlier, the whole team needs to do. He just needs to go out there and play loose and have fun.
Yeah.
Don't get too amped up. Don't get too nervous. Just go play, man. Yeah. Go play and have fun and do what you do and be Garrett Greene. That's what I want to see this week. And hopefully he only gets to do it for a half because the score is so there's such a discrepancy that Nico gets to play the second half. Maybe even Ryder Burton or Khalil Wilkins gets to play. That's what I want to see happen.
Yeah.
Garrett get his swagger back in the first half and go out and ball out, throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns, run for a touchdown, and then go rest for the rest second half of the game. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and Garrett's the kind of player, he doesn't need us to tell him. Probably doesn't even need Neal to tell him.
No. He does.
He knows. And so I expect him to be put in position this week. And I really think the team feeds off of him so much that I expect a huge, huge performance for him this week and the team in general and offensive general. But I think Garrett really steps up.
Yep, agreed. By the way, this is just a reminder, if you want to find Jonathan and I on X, you can find us there. Jonathan is at Jonathan K. Martin. It's Jonathan. Jonathan K. Martin. And I'm Couz at COUZ206 for those who are listening. For those who are watching, it's scrolling along the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. So find us on X if you want to interact with us. C and I are both really active on X. So, and don't forget, again, reminder, our channel account at GB Breakdown _ as well if you want to interact with the show. Now the fun part. Score prediction. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, I'm 0 for 1 starting the season.
We both are. Sort of.
Sort of,
I did predict us to lose, but I didn't have the score right.
Yeah. So I went West Virginia 42, Albany 17. I think that when you look at this game, West Virginia is bigger, stronger, faster. I think they're going to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. Opened up this show saying I'm admittedly confused and nervous as to what we're going to see. It's unknown for me. But I think West Virginia is going to I think they're going to strike early, and I think they'll strike often. I really feel like this group put their head down this week and went to work.
Yep.
And I think they're going to correct some mistakes. I think they know they're the better team, but also I think that they realize too they can't just take Albany for granted. Mm-hmm. And so I expect West Virginia, don't shoot the messenger if it doesn't work, if it doesn't go this way. But I think West Virginia wins, and I think they win big 42-17.
Yeah. Well, West Virginia has never lost to an FCS opponent. They're 24-0, I believe it is. There's a first time for everything, Jonathan.
Uh-oh.
But it won't be this year. I'm predicting West Virginia to win.
I was about to log off.
I'm like you, man. I think they're going to put their head down, get to work. I think they got humbled a little bit last week, to be honest with you.
Word. That's a great word.
And I think they realized that maybe they're not as good as they thought they were. Maybe they still need to put a lot of work in, and I think they will, because I think this group wants to win. I think they want to do the right thing. I think they care. I saw a few people saying there was no hustle and effort. I don't think that's the case. Mm-hmm. I think they were trying last week. They just played bad. I mean, it's that simple. At least from where I was sitting, it didn't look like a lack of effort to me. It was just lack of execution. But I think they go to work, like you said, put their head down, go to work. The coaching staff is probably going to be, I'm sure everybody in that building's pissed off this week. I'm sure they're all, focused and honed in on what they have to do on their jobs. And I think they're going to come out, and I think they're going to lay the smack down on Albany, 42-10. I had 42 number is where my brain is, but I think Albany might even score early, but I think 42-10 is the score, and I think West Virginia gets their mojo back, at least for this week. I still won't. They could win 42-10, and I still won't feel great until they beat Pitt. Yeah. And heck, I don't know that I'll feel great even. I don't know if I ever feel great, to be honest, until they're in a national championship. But anyway.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. I won't feel totally, content as far as, are they a good team yet until they can win against Pitt. But I do think they get it done this week against the FCS opponent in Albany, who I do think will show some flashes and make some plays. But I think at the end of the day, West Virginia is just too fast, too big, and too deep for Albany.
Yeah. I think it's you said that 42 number, and I thought, don't tell me we've got the same score.
Close, yeah.
We don't share notes. Yeah, I think for me, I think it's just what do we see, right? What do we see out of this team? Is it the stress, kind of borrowing a West Virginia basketball, stress Virginia, where they come out and there's a little bit of stress on them, that they feel like they have to perform, that they're eager to put last week, and so they maybe just struggle a little bit to get their footing? Or is it the team that comes out and says, no, that was not us, as Neal Brown said, that's not us? I think you have to, as hard as it is, because we've talked about it all week, others have talked about it all week, fans have talked about it all week, but I think you have to take the approach of, this is week one, right? Last week happened, but it's over. It's over. I'd go all the way back to when we talked to Garnett Halls Jr. He said, hey, if we lose, and we don't want to, but if we lose, it does not affect our goal of playing in the Big 12 championship. He said it weeks ago. And so I think that's an important reminder for all of us, myself included, that this is week one. The season starts Saturday. And you get a win. You establish yourself as the team that we thought you were going to be. You head to Pittsburgh. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but get a win there. You could say you're 2-0, and let's get into Big 12 play. I think that's the attitude you have to take. Yeah. And I'll be curious to see if the team takes it. And I really think that they will. I think so.
Yeah, I believe they will. Like I said, I feel good about it. I never feel comfortable, but I feel good about it, if that makes sense.
It's good. No, it's a great way to put it. Because that's how I feel. I feel good that they're going to come out, but we both said as much early on that we're the unknown leaves you just uncomfortable enough to where you're questioning a little bit. But I feel good.
Yep. All right. Jonathan, any final parting words for the fine people out there in podcast and YouTube land that might be listening?
I don't think so. You said that you're not comfortable until they're playing in the national championship. If that happens, this show is going on the road.
I hope so.
if we play in the Big 12 championship, we may have to figure out a way to take this show on the road.
Might have to do a GoFundMe, but we'll figure it out.
Well, that's okay. We can do that. But no, just excited. Like we said to open the show last week, obviously not to keep harping. It didn't go the way we wanted it. Fans wanted it. The team wanted it. But it's over. They're not going to let you replay it. I'm just excited to see this team get back on the field. It's hard to believe that we're just days away from week 2. It just seems like it flies by. But I think the best thing that can happen for this team right now is to get back out on the field.
They do need to play. They need to play. And they need to. Yep. You get the taste out of their mouth, hit somebody else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And get it behind them.
Best thing that can happen.
Yep. Agreed. Well, everybody, thanks again for joining the show this fine week 2 of college football season, episode 6 of the Golden Blue Breakdown Show. Shout out again to our sponsor, Cats, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner. If you need a personal injury or medical malpractice attorney in West Virginia or Virginia, call 304-999-HURT or go to yourlawyeryourvoice.com, and they will take care of your needs. Jonathan, man, it's been fun. I can't wait to do it again next week.
Absolutely.
Let's go Mountaineers. Q Country Roads.